Hi there, this is Ginny again, and my buddy Jelly Belly is here. He always likes to hear stories, and the kitten up there is Pika, and we might have other cats. We'll have to see what happens. So we're reading out of The Wild Women of Lake Anna, and this is chapter 9, called Homesick. And this first thing is an email from Bailey to her friend Amber, who's in Florida. And so she writes, "Hey Amber, I started school on Monday. Mrs. Dudley is nice enough. Some boys call her Mrs. Dogface. I have her for homeroom and language arts. She put me in the advanced group. I met Beth and Emily. They live near Sugar and are showing me around the school. We might get together this weekend if Sugar says okay. I saw Justin Rude again when I was getting the mail. He shouted 'Florida girl' as he went by and asked if my mother wanted me back yet. I hate him. I also signed up for band. Has Skippy learned how to beg? I miss you, Bailey." After Bailey sent the email to Amber, she saw there was a new one from her mother. Bailey read it twice, hoping that her mother would say either that she was coming home or that Bailey would be able to join her. As usual, her mother sounded very cheerful and there was no mention of coming back. So the email is from Molly, her mother, to Bailey. "Bailey, you must have started school by now. I want to hear all about it. Has Sugar been behaving herself? I can see and hear the volcano erupt from the village where I'm staying. There are wild parrots and howler monkeys in the trees. We plan to go to the Pacific coast for a week. I hear there are beaches crawling with hermit crabs, just like the crabs you had in your second grade class. I hear the kittens are quite lively. Ask Sugar to email me a picture of you with them. Love and kisses, Mom." Bailey typed a quick reply. She was glad that her mother had showed her how to use the computer so that they could write to each other while she traveled. The day before Bailey left for Virginia, her mother downloaded 11 pages about Costa Rica. There were many pictures, including one of the volcano, and several maps of cities. Molly tried to show her where she would be staying, but Bailey didn't want to look at anything that day. She had to pack and try to call her friends to say goodbye. She put the papers in her suitcase without glancing at them. Her mother had seemed really happy about the trip, but Bailey wasn't. Why should she be? Bailey logged off. Sugar had promised to take her out in her 12-foot boat, but it had been raining since midnight, with no chance of letting up. It was not a good way to start the weekend. Bailey took her clarinet out of its case, carefully put the sections together, and clamped a reed in the mouthpiece. Mr. Skinner, the band teacher, had encouraged her to try out for a solo to play during the next concert. Bailey and Amber had played a clarinet duet, Frosty the Snowman, in Liberty Elementary's Christmas concert. Amber kept saying, I'm so nervous. What if I forget my part?" Bailey told her friend that she could do it, and Amber didn't miss a note. Their mothers clapped like crazy when the duet was over, and Bailey and Amber took a bow together. That was when they were in 4th grade and just beginners. Bailey was glad that her clarinet no longer sounded so squeaky when she played. She liked the way the keys clicked when she pressed them, and the mellow, woody tone of the notes. The only other person Mr. Skinner asked to try out was a boy named Tim, who sat next to her. She put her mouth over the reed and slowly played a B-flat scale to warm up. There was plenty of time to practice, because it would be at least an hour before Sugar was ready to go to town. She was in her office with the door closed. Bailey opened her band folder and propped up her part for a Sousa march on the chair she was using as a music stand. Shadow jumped on the chair, knocking the music to the floor. Shadow got into more trouble every day, and Sally always followed him. Bailey set up the music again and continued practicing. It was still raining hard when Sugar called, "Put on your raincoat, it's time to go." Bailey had a new raincoat, new from a thrift store anyway, and dark blue pull-on rubber boots with green soles. The colors reminded her of the water at the beach in Florida. Sugar found the boots on sale at the farm co-op. "Mucking about boots," said Sugar. "You'll need them. It can get pretty muddy here when it rains." Bailey remembered the heavy rains and scary thunderstorms that often rolled in during the late afternoons of summer and early fall in Florida. As fierce as the storms were, they usually lasted only an hour or so. Then she often saw a beautiful rainbow, sometimes a double one, stretched high across the horizon. While there were still tall thunderclouds dotting it, the sky blazed with purple and orange, pinks and reds, and the hot, humid air briefly cooled. Those were the times when she and her mother took bicycle rides on the deserted back roads and watched for rabbits, quail, armadillos, and bobcats. Bailey discovered that the Virginia rains could last for days, not hours. The dirt, the color of a new penny, became muddy and mucky and stuck to her boots like pounds of glue. She couldn't scrape all of it off her feet before she climbed in Sugar's truck. "Don't worry, that's what the floor mats are for. Now then, always keep your eyes open for turtles, even in the winter," said Sugar, making the windshield wipers go faster. "This truck stops for turtles even in the rain. They get in the road and then squash." Excuse me. "I'll bet I've rescued a dozen of them in the last year. It's a little early for them to be out, but I always look. It's good practice," said Sugar. "What do you do with them?" asked Bailey. "Do you bring them home?" "Oh, no," said Sugar with a laugh. "I give them a lecture about being in the middle of the road and put them well off the side, being careful to face them away from the road. They usually go," oh, this is the older cat, Grace. "They usually go inside their shells when I pick them up, so I don't really know if they're listening. But somebody's got to tell them," she said. "You are now officially part of Sugar's Turtle Patrol." Bailey grinned. Mom sure was right about Sugar's adventures. Okay, and let's do one more chapter here. So chapter 10, Fix-Up Party. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? Sugar was correct about the muck. Bailey's new boots became covered with what she called goopy stuff when she waded into the ditch by the side of the road to get a newspaper from its tube. The muck clung to her boots like giant wads of yellow gum. Sugar was out walking alone now that the rain had stopped. Bailey had decided to play with the kittens instead of going with her. Glancing out the window a few minutes later, Bailey thought she could see Sugar coming out of the dirt logging road about a half-mile down the street. The entrance to the road was blocked by branches, and there were yellow "No Trespassing" signs tacked to 2 trees. The narrow, rut-filled road disappeared into the thick, brushy pines. Bailey shuddered. The woods looked so dark and unfriendly that she couldn't imagine wanting to explore that particular forest, planted by a timber company, even if the yellow signs had said "Welcome" instead of "No Trespassing." Bailey walked back to the front porch, stamping her feet to remove the goop. She was about to sit on the porch swing to wait for Sugar to return when she noticed another sack of trash dumped near the garage. She decided to clean it up while she waited. She waved as Sugar strode briskly up the driveway, her red wool jacket unbuttoned. Bailey noticed that the muck on her brown work pants was way above the tops of her boots. She opened her mouth to ask where Sugar had been and to tell her about the new bag of trash, but Sugar didn't give her a chance. "I think we'll redecorate your room today," she announced. "The purple curtains and yellow paint just don't go with your new patriotic quilt. So let's go get paint and material and have us a fix-up party." Bailey had to admit it sounded like a good idea. She hadn't wanted to hurt Sugar's feelings, but the colors were pretty icky. It wasn't like her room at home, with its pink and white checked curtains and floral wallpaper. Everything had matched, right down to the extra cushions on the bed. Her mother copied decorating ideas from magazines and home improvement shows on TV. She wasn't like Sugar, who seemed to buy everything, including towels and curtains, because they were cheap or on sale at yard sales. Sugar told her the dark yellow paint was there when she bought the house. She had no reason to change it until now. "And," said Sugar, her eyes twinkling, "we'll go to real stores to get everything." Bailey was secretly relieved. She was never sure where her grandmother intended to shop. Treasure hunts didn't always mean finding treasures. Sugar made good on her promise. At the paint store, Bailey picked bright blue paint for one wall and a snowy white for the others. Oh, that sounds pretty, doesn't it? At a department store she had never heard of before, Bailey selected red cafe curtains with white stars for the dormer window. Back at the house, Sugar spread out old newspapers to protect the beige carpet. She and Bailey put on big shirts that had belonged to Grandpa and their oldest jeans. Her grandmother showed Bailey how to use a small brush to paint the edges of the wall, while Sugar stood on a ladder to roll paint on the upper part. Then she handed Bailey the roller and let her finish the bottom half, the part she could easily reach. Next, they painted the other walls white, then stood back to admire their work. Sounds really fresh and bright, doesn't it? "After the paint is dry, we'll decide what you want to put back up. I've always had all the family pictures on this wall, but if you'd rather put posters up, well, it's your room now, honey." Bailey said, "Well, maybe a couple pictures. Let me look at them." She knew she wanted May's picture where it had always been, and maybe, "I want all the wild women," said Bailey, much to her own surprise. Sugar's eyes crinkled. "That's a great idea. Here's one of your great-grandmother and May, of course, and me and your mother, and my aunts, Julia and Patricia. They rode camels in the desert when they were young women. And there's room for more." Bailey wondered if her picture would ever be hung with the wonderful wild women of the family. "Look at us," said Sugar as she moved the mirror back on top of the dresser. Bailey saw that both of them were covered with specks of blue and white paint. It was in their hair, on their noses, all over their shirts and hands. There was a blue glob the size of a raisin on her chin, and a bigger one on Sugar's ear. "Let's hang the curtains and then call it a day," said Sugar. "It really looks good," said Bailey. It wasn't her real room, but she had to admit that if she was going to live at Sugar's house, this room was starting to look pretty nice. The red curtains went up just as the sun was setting behind the tall trees. Before she went downstairs to eat leftover spaghetti, Bailey again studied the faces of the wild women at different ages of their lives. They seemed to have faraway looks in their eyes. Many had their lips slightly turned up into a smile. In one picture, May looked more serious, as if she was making a spy plan or watching out for the enemy. I wonder what it would be like to have a real adventure of my own, thought Bailey, as she turned out the light. And I'm going to show you a picture of all the pictures on the wall of the wild women, and the caption on the bottom says, which one do you think is May, the spy? There you go. Okay, that's it for now. See you later.